Welcome, sports enthusiasts, to the 260, broadcasting live from the heart of Fort Wayne's sports epicenter, the Spiece Field House. Join us on this exhilarating journey as we uncover the stories of perseverance, teamwork, and passion that have unfolded within these walls. Visit SpieceFeetFitness.com to learn more about this extraordinary facility. You, me, us, and them, we are the 260.
Well, Joe, we got two of the 11,000 people that has run the Big Six marathons in the world.
Impressive. And I call them the Jedi Knights, Dave, because anybody who's run the Boston Marathon, that is the Super Bowl of marathons, and we are so excited to have the great Tom Hardin with us and Sam Melo with us. And guys, I guess the first question to begin with is, I'm going to start with you, Tom.
Sure.
Everybody who is as accomplished as you two are with the marathons and the running, that seed had to be planted. What was that seed for you, Tom? And what was that moment where you were like, I'm in love with this, man. This is a big part of my life.
Well, so lifelong resident of Fort Wayne.
Yeah.
Ran track in middle school, ran recreationally in sort of high school and college. But really, the love of running came when I graduated from law school and came to Fort Wayne, practiced law, and I got together with a group of lawyers and judges.
What is it with lawyers?
Yeah.
Because how I got to Sam was through Tim Claxton.
Sure.
And, there's a big joke.
Friend,
big joke
out to Tim, yeah.
You can see Tim running the city during his lunch all day long.
Yeah,
what is it with lawyers and running?
I don't know, to be honest with you.
Is it mental, Tom? Is it, you guys have such, with the profession, you guys push yourself so hard mentally. Do you think the running is the physical that balances it out, or am I just reaching?
It could be, but honestly, it was camaraderie. It was, and especially for me, small law firm at that time, it was just Steve and I, and you got to kick around ideas, run, have some fitness along with the camaraderie, and that's really what planted the seed. Well, then what happened is that I realized these guys like Tim Claxton and Paul Sturm and Tom Feltz, these guys were, taking it to another level. And
you don't want to get left behind.
And ran Boston, and I'm thinking, because lawyers are competitive, and I'm just like,
of course,
how do I get there?
Yeah.
And so eventually, I started to focus and was able to get there, and have been on a great journey and loving it ever since.
Now, Sam, you originally told me it was stress why you started running.
Yeah, it's everyone has a story in their journey, but I think for me, I was going through a divorce at the time.
That's a lot of stress.
Yeah, and I was living on my own and saying, I want to stay fit. I want to do something different, and so that was a catalyst for me. And again, I was not a runner in high school. I've never been a runner. I might have run a few miles here and there. So the idea of running came because it was something different. It was a challenge, and all I could do at that time was run 1 minute.
1 minute.
Yeah, and
So
I thought I was going to die.
You started, and all you could run was a minute?
A minute. I was out of breath.
Wow, what a journey.
Yeah, and I was just walking. I said, oh, man, I don't know if I can run another minute. So I'll take a break and then run another minute. And that's what I tell people when they say, well, I could never do that. And I say, yeah, you can run a minute. And then they believe you. Yeah, you can run a minute.
Did it become empowering? Here you are dealing with all this stress. You start out, you can only run a minute, but you're building and building and building. Did you just really get a lot of momentum from it?
It was definitely the feeling that you could do more, but like Tom said, I found a community. There was
Yeah.
a store there. I used to live in Canada at the time, in Calgary, and there was a running store. And they said, you can come and join us. It doesn't cost anything. Just come and run with us, 6 in the afternoon, whatever, after work. So I did. So I found people, and I got inspired by them.
Wow.
Because it wasn't like I saw people, they looked like me. They were regular people. They were not runners. And this lady said, which I didn't think she was like a marathon quality runner, and she said, oh, no, I do marathons. I said, what? You do marathons?
Yeah. Marathoners are the nicest people, and they're all body types. People don't realize that, do they, Tom?
Absolutely.
That's exactly right, Joe.
Look at
Yours
that body
truly,
type.
I was
Yeah,
gonna say.
look at that body type right there.
You can't go exactly. You can't go by. You can't judge by body type when it comes to running.
Yeah.
Talk about the training, Tom.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I ran some
Yeah.
marathons, so I got some great stories. They weren't like great marathons like these. I got some nice stories to
Well, when
share.
we were
but
talking
the
body
training-
type, I was pointing at Joe. I'm like, I don't look at Joe as a marathoner, but he's ran.
But he has
done
absolutely
it.
is.
I run,
Marathon.
yeah, I didn't. I mean, I'm not running like what you guys are running, but the toughest thing for me was the training, Tom, and
Yeah.
just the injuries and the beating down. How have all these years you have managed that and been able to just continually elevate?
Yeah. Lucky, really, and learning. You learn as you
Sure.
go, you know. So, yeah, the training, a good training program takes discipline. I mean, you got to do the work. You got to do the work. And in addition, there's hydration, there's nutrition, there's rest. There's just a lot of things that you learn along the way, and you need to educate yourself about if you want to continue to run faster or, hit higher marks. And I'm still learning. But the training, that weekly training plan for,
Yes.
my go-to is about a 15-week training plan.
Yeah.
You don't miss.
How many times a week do you run, Tom?
Well, when I'm in training, it's 3 hard days, which is different than a lot of people. And the 4 days, the off days, it'd be light running or, elliptical or rest.
Sure. Or
But,
rest.
but the 3 days are intense and you're tired afterwards.
Now that 3 days, how many miles is that?
Probably 40. So,
A day.
no.
Oh, okay.
The
You're splitting it.
combination of the 3.
Okay.
Yep. And so then the other days.
He's knocking out about 12 miles. He's rolling up, doing about 12 to 14 miles, and then taking a day to recover or stretch or do whatever. But that's a heavy workload. When I mean, as a little, as me getting into it, right? I think we'd run maybe, Tom, 4 miles on Tuesdays and Thursdays, maybe 6 on Wednesday, come back, maybe run 12
Yeah.
on Sunday.
Yeah.
So, that's about 20, 25 miles a week. 40 miles if somebody's done it for many, many years
Just-
and knowing his body.
Just to put it in perspective for everybody not used to marathons, from Spiece to Hicksville, Ohio, is 28 miles.
Yeah.
They're running 26.2, so it's just shy of running to Hicksville,
Yeah.
for a marathon.
Yeah.
That's a long ways.
Sam, how about
Out of
you? How much? What's your training look like each week? And I mean, how about the fall of 22, man? You just completed the last continent, man. I mean, man, you know what, man?
Yeah.
You know what?
Congratulations.
That is so impressive. I mean, you know what, man? I played Division I football for University of Cincinnati. I'm telling you what, running marathons was tougher. You had to be mentally tougher. It was more grueling than anything I ever did playing college football, Sam.
Yeah, the training is key, like Tom was saying, and I think that coming up with a plan that works for you, everybody's different. I don't
Sure.
normally run. My long runs are on the weekend.
Yeah.
And like you say, I have joined the team of attorneys. I'm not an attorney, but one thing that comes out that is always good is you can get free advice when you're.
You are an attorney, man. I love that, Stoner. How about that?
He is now.
Sam, you are
Tim,
smart. That's right.
shout out to Tim there.
Hey, I think he stayed in a Holiday Inn.
That's fantastic. Yeah, you hang out with those guys, you pick up a little bit of law.
I know. But no, it's been a great experience. But the finding the right plan. So I try, because of the schedule, I try to fit in my work schedule. I try to do it at noon as well during the week, and put in the long runs on the weekend. So
What do you do for a living, Sam?
I have a business that provides interpreting and translation service.
That's right. You
Yeah,
speak how many
yeah.
languages?
No, I only speak Spanish and English. But we
Okay.
provide all the languages.
Okay.
Wow.
So we do that for the courts, and we do that in healthcare too for some of the local hospitals and other places. So,
Nice.
yeah.
Do you feel like your running fits real nice with your business, that mindset? Do you feel like, when you go for a run at noon, you come back, you're feeling good, you got your blood pumping, do you feel like that really kind of sets the rest of your day?
Absolutely. I come out of a hard morning sometime of being in court, be dealing with things,
Sure.
and then not feeling like I want to run. I'm tired.
Sure.
And I tell that. I get to the Y, and which I run from the downtown one with Tim and some of the others, and then you say you just have to show up. The big thing is just showing up. You don't feel like it. Even today, I knew I had to do 5 miles, and I wasn't sure if I was going to. It's a little cool, it's a little chill. Do I want to go out? But I found some of the other guys, they showed up, and I said, we're going out.
Yeah. So you feed off that energy, don't you?
You do. So when you run, then you know what's going to happen. You know you're going to feel better after you run. So even if you're feeling down, after you do the run, you're going to have that energy and then feed on it and get some food and go back at it. And
Now, it always took me a couple miles to warm up. For
Absolutely.
you guys, what's that like for you guys, Tom? Being experienced, what's a typical warm up to where they used to always say, Joe, can you get in that chi? What is that point where Tom Hardin is, okay, I'm rolling downhill?
Well, if it's a long run, you're right. A couple of miles into it, and you're cruising.
Yeah.
But it just sort of depends. Some days you're going for a pace. Other days it's just sort of slow and easy. So it really depends. But I wanted to pick up on Sam's point. For me, in terms of what motivates me, and I would say this for everybody, it is my time to decompress. It is my thinking time.
Sure.
And I run alone a lot. And
I know you do, and I've always admired that because you know what,
Yep.
Sam? My little bit of running, I always kind of had to run a group. And I felt like a lot of times, Dave, I got pulled along, and that's a real thing. You can get pulled along.
No
Now, I've
question. 'Cause you don't
admired-
wanna-
you get kind of pulled along because you don't want to so much get left. And you can kind of fall in with, you can get to the point where you can kind of fall in with people. But I admired that about you. You're a guy who's run a lot on his own.
Yeah, because a lot of guys will run in the morning, run at noon. I'm an after-work guy and on the weekends guy. And, it's not that I don't run with people,
Sure.
but most of my training is just, because the schedule's tight too. You're working all day, and it's not as though you have the luxury of necessarily coordinating it. These guys who run at noon, they, have evolved and have done that. I don't shut down at noon, and I, would prefer to just,
Eat.
keep grinding away at work, and then, do it in the evening. But that Sunday long run is sacrosanct, man. It's something that
That's
it's
your
just part of
Sunday.
you.
Yeah,
This
that's
is part of you.
That's part of your life.
Yeah.
Every weekend, isn't it?
Right. For the
Wow.
most part.
Do you guys do any indoor running?
I do in the
do,
winter
really?
a lot.
Because like
all my-
Spiece, they have 1/9 of one time around is 1/9
Yep.
of a mile.
Yep. At the Jorgensen Y.
Oh, okay, yeah,
Here.
okay, yeah.
So I didn't know if you guys.
Inside, you mean?
Yeah, we have a track up.
Oh,
up
okay.
top.
Yeah, that's cool. No, at the Y, if you go to the downtown, you got to do 14 of those to get 1 mile.
At Jorgensen, it's 8.
It's a lot of counting, isn't it,
That's a
Sam?
lot of,
Yeah.
I lose count. So I do treadmill for my speed work because I find that if I get on the treadmill for the speed work, I have no choice. Once you set it, you have no choice. You either run or you fall off. So you got to keep going. So that's why it works for me. It's harder for me to do the speed work outside because, say like go now for this a mile or whatever, and you do, but it's on the treadmill is easier. You cannot stop until you bring down the speed.
Yeah.
So
Unless you go off the back of it like me. I tell you what,
Always a
guys.
possibility.
Well, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, I want to hear some good marathon story. I want to hear that marathon time where you absolutely killed it, but then I also want to hear that marathon where, oh my gosh, do I have a story? And I got a great story for you too. So we're
I
excited,
want to see what
Sonar.
Tom has in this box down
That's
here.
right.
That's right.
That's right. A little hardware.
Sound
this
good.
year.
You want to
So
see
good.
some hardware too. So coming back, we're going to have Sam Melo and Tom Hardin, a couple of great names in the 260 for marathoners. So we'll be right back. This is the 260.
It's the 260 Podcast, live from Spiece Field every Thursday at 7 p.m., highlighting all Indiana sports, featuring guests from the 260 area code and beyond. Live on YouTube every Thursday at 7 p.m. Just search the 260. Also available anywhere you find your podcasts. And remember, when searching, there are no zeros in the 260. It's the 260 Podcast, live from Spiece Field every Thursday at 7 p.m.
And welcome back to the 260. That's right, it's at THE260 because there are no zeros in the 260. Here at the lovely Spiece Field House, SpieceFitness.com. And now back to the show. You, me, us, and them. We are the 260.
And yes, we are the 260. And if you're out driving, you see a couple of guys just cruise by, run by. That's probably Tom Hardin and Sam Melo. And we're talking marathons. We're talking 26.2, Dave. And before we ask them about their stories, I got to tell you a great story of my first marathon. Sonar, you'll love this. Showed up about 230 pounds. I was in the corral, and the people said, hey, sir, we think you're in the wrong place. We don't think you should be in the marathon corral. I said, no, I'm here. It was in Chicago, Tom.
Yeah.
And so I took off. It was kind of a cool day, right? And I probably should have been a little bit more hydrated, Charlene. And I'm running along, and I was pumped up. I did the training. And around every corner in the Chicago Marathon, the people are out. There's there's thousands and thousands and thousands of people. So I'm high-fiving, I'm dancing, I'm cutting corners, jumping around. I mean, this is awesome, man. And I'm feeling great. I've never felt that high. And I'm like dancing to the music, shaking hands. I mean, it was like a politician on a marathon run. I got down to mile 20, and all of a sudden I was like, oh, man, I wasted too much energy, right? And all of a sudden I was like, well, I think I'm going to stop and stretch, right? I went to stop, and it was like there was cement in my muscles, right? And the cramps, Tom. And then all of a sudden I'm running along, and this beautiful little Italian lady comes out and sees me. And she has the most best apple I've ever seen in my life. That beautiful green apple. She hands it to me, and I said, thank you so much. God bless you. I'm suffering so bad. I'm about mile 22. And I went to bite the apple, and I went, I couldn't bend my arm. Tom, I couldn't bend my arm. I was like, I couldn't get a bite of the apple. So at that point, I was so upset. I had to give up on the apple. I was locking up. And so it was like the Baton Death March the last 4 miles. So I get to the end, Tom, and I turn, Chicago. Yeah. I turn on that last, and it's like 0.2 of a mile, right? And I am just, it's probably it's like a wounded animal trying to get across the finish line. And I'm just pulling my bones across. And all of a sudden, here comes a guy in a full Boba Fett outfit suit from Star Wars. blows by me at the end, Sonar, and outleans me at the tape. And I was just like, the indignity of it, man. But that's my marathon
But you finished.
story.
But you finished.
I finished,
so-
baby.
That had to be terrible to try to get to that apple.
I mean, I wanted that apple so
couldn't
bad.
bend it to go
I
to
was
your hand?
nah, man. I couldn't even bid it. I couldn't do anything. That last, I was cursing myself because Tom will tell you, and Tom's gonna talk about something about the marathon he just ran. In Mesa? Tom, you just had a great time, but Tom will tell you the race starts at about mile 20, doesn't it, Tom?
That's right, absolutely, yeah. You know, I had run several marathons before I was able to finally qualify for Boston back in 2018, and many times you hit the wall at 20. I mean, that's where, you sort of rise above it, or you sort of hang on for dear life, or you just sort of say, well, you know what, we're going to do better the next time.
Or you get beat by Boba Fett at the end.
That's right, that's right.
So
that's right.
you've done 29, you've done 22.
That's right. Yeah.
Wow.
How many times have you really, really hit a wall?
A lot.
Yeah, on those early
I
ones,
can't
for
even
sure.
tell you. Yeah.
I mean, even at this point, you're still hitting walls.
Yeah, and because there's a lot of things that could happen. So 2019, for instance, you did Boston. I was there as well.
Sure. Yeah. Right.
And I had the training down like I thought it was just a normal training. And then I got a cold a week before the race.
No.
So I show up there and I'm saying, I'm fine, I'm training. And I just struggled the whole time. Like I slow down. It wasn't even hitting the wall. It was mile 12, I knew it. And I was trying to push it because I had the training, so I thought I could, but my body was
shutting down.
It was shutting down. So I finished.
So there's a lot of variables.
So there's a lot of variables. There are times where, like my best time, I told you earlier,
328.
328 was actually, and at that point, I'm 58 years old, and it was in Sydney, Australia. I flew for 17 hours.
Wow, you ran your best time in Sydney,
With
Australia.
all that jet
Yeah.
lag.
All that.
This is what is so weird, because 17-hour flight, I get there, very little sleep. The marathon is the next day. I don't know what happened. I can't tell you why.
Wow, all
My
the
body-
adversity you ran your
It
best
was the
time.
worst, and and the same thing happened for me in Boston. Were you there in 2018? Was that your?
No, I was not in 2018.
So 2018 was the worst in the last 40 some years of Boston for weather. It was like horrible. If you read about it, you'll see some of the elites just stopped. Some of them they just stopped. They didn't finish because the weather was so bad. There was sleet, there was rain, there was
Snow.
snow.
Just brutal,
It was
brutal, yeah.
Anyhow, that was my best Boston.
That was your best Boston?
That was out of the Boston. That was my best.
So you're a
Boston.
mudder, man.
No,
I mean,
Yeah.
when it comes
No.
to marathoning, you're a mudder, man. You like the elements, huh?
What happened was I got something internally clicked for me in the middle of the storm, and I started fighting with the storm and with myself. I said, "You
Storm
just,
ain't not
yeah,
gonna
like
beat you.
bring it on.
You're not gonna
bring it
beat
on.
me.
You're not gonna beat me."
It was like that. So that was kind of propelled me to say, "Yeah, I can do this, and I can do any marathon. I can take it.
Wow.
Not that I'm fast, but I can do it."
The toughness. I mean,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I want you to comment on this, Tom.
Yeah.
When I hit the wall, the few that I ran, I felt like it was emotional. Like I like emotionally had to deal with it, man. It wasn't like running down the field making a tackle in college football or doing something. It was just like, man, it was almost emotional hitting that wall. And I mean, to run a 312 out in Mesa. I mean, Tom, did it feel that fast? Are you watching the splits? Any wall that day, or did you just
Yeah.
crush it that day?
I gotta tell you,
Can
it
you
was
get a
one of those
shot of that?
days.
Yes.
Look at that, baby. Look at that sonar.
It just came together, and I remember it to this day for two reasons. One,
That is
my
beautiful.
oldest daughter lives out there, and
Yeah.
she came to support me.
Wow.
And was there for me at the finish line, which was great.
Oh, man, how awesome is that? You run your fastest, and there's your daughter.
So you have a time in mind that you want to get, and the pace, if I recall, was around like maybe a 7:30 pace per mile, 7:28 maybe. And I'm running, and it's like 7:18, 7:16. I'm like, Tom, slow down.
Yeah, because you're calculating the
And
whole
I'm
way.
and I'm just cruising, and I'm like, so I try to slow down. The thing goes off on the watch, 7:15. I'm like, I cannot believe this. I'm getting a little fearful. I'm thinking to myself,
Yeah, because you don't want to crash.
mile 13, mile 15, mile 18. This is all going to fall
not
apart.
normal.
no wall, never fell apart. My fastest 3 miles were the last 3 miles.
Kidding me? That was your fastest. You called me that day. Dave, he calls me and he tells me what he runs, and I'm in a restaurant, and I was just like, "I see you, Tom." I like erupted, man, because I thought maybe
I can see that.
I thought maybe like 325, 330. You know what I mean? 312, and you're fast, and you negative split, man.
Oh, for
wow,
sure. It was great.
That's amazing.
And I got to tell you,
That's
on the wall thing, I mean, honestly, yes, conditions, depending on what happens that day, of course. But really, the first, 10 or 12 marathons, that's sort of one era.
Yeah.
But when you figure it out, when you sort of know the program, and you do honestly put in the training, you do have your hydration and nutrition down, you do all the things, the little things, it sort of clicks now. I mean, you really, and plus you have that experience and that knowledge of knowing that you've done it, so you can rely upon that. And the mental part, there's no question. I mean, you hit on that. Any runner will tell you, any marathon will tell you that, I don't know what the percentage is, but I don't know, 50, 60% is up here.
Mental.
It totally is.
I mean, more
sure
mental
is,
than physical.
Like any sport, it's always mental.
Yeah.
No, it's so mental. And talk about Boston, Tom. Talk about the hill. Was it the Heartbreak Hill they call it? Was that mile 22?
Mile 22.
Tell us about that.
The Newton Hills. Yeah, I mean, that's tough. But I'll tell you, too, I mean, Sam said he got his best time in 2018. Conditions were horrible. He underplayed it. It was windy, it was cold, and rained like it was a monsoon conditions. It was horrible in 2018. I wasn't there, but I will say this. Boston is almost a victory lap, right? I mean, you run marathons like Louisiana and Mesa and some of these others with the goal in mind, I want this to be my qualifying race, because you have to qualify to get into Boston. But when you get there, some runners, of course, are super competitive and really want to crush it at Boston. But it's a hard course. That's not your typical BQ course.
Yeah.
And so all of my Bostons have been slow, really.
But is there a sense when you show up to the starting line at Boston?
Oh, there's no question.
It's like a kid that plays football his whole life, and there he is in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Like man, we take a moment and I made it.
Like the state championship. You look around. There's
how
no question.
I think
every time.
I think for everyone, when you show up at Boston, it is a victory lap. You feel like you're here. You made it. So just celebrate. And it's hard because Boston first 6-7 miles is kind of a straight downhill. So it's very hard to slow down. And they all tell you, slow down. Yeah. Because you might crash. You may not make the hills.
Boston being the oldest, the way you guys talk about it, is it? You got the Indy 500, Daytona 500. Is Boston like the Mecca?
Yeah, it is.
No question.
Because it's the oldest?
I think because it's the oldest, and it's the only marathon in the world that has been going non-stop for 127 years. So it's the most famous. So I think, and it's a tough course.
And you have to qualify.
And
so it's not
the
like
only
you can
one,
just sign up.
Right, it's the only one you have to qualify.
So the people that you're running with, they have all qualified, and they're all excited, and they're all good runners.
They
and
all have a story.
And the energy is unbelievable. And the crowds are, I mean, for the full 26 miles, both sides of the road are lined with people.
Do you feed off that?
Of course.
Absolutely, yeah.
Of course.
Absolutely. And the one you haven't mentioned, but this one that Tom did, I did too, in the 125th anniversary one.
Look at that. Hold that up there. That is beautiful.
It's a beautiful medal. This particular Boston is special, number one, because it's the 125th anniversary, but also they only allow about 20,000 runners on this one. Normally it's 30,000, but because of COVID, you have to qualify way under your time. So even if you qualify, that didn't get you into Boston. You had to be...
So that was an extra special.
That was, because you were now part of a very small group that you had to work so hard. My advantage was that I got older, so you get more time.
That's the one. Yeah, the one sport.
Yeah,
I'm there too.
Better. Yeah, so I qualified no problem because now I'm older. I get 15 more minutes. Like, I'm in, no problem.
But this one too is. Sam mentioned this is also special to me, and I brought this medal out because I got a shout out to my wife Carrie, who's also a Boston marathoner.
Yeah, how cool is that?
On this particular
so you keep
one,
it in the family.
We ran step for step the entire way together, and that was
man,
really
cool.
that
is awesome, man. That is really cool, Tom.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sam, what made you start to think about the Big Six?
So being in Boston for the first time was 2017 was my first Boston. Running the race, I learned about the majors while I was there. So, well, what do you mean the majors? There's this thing called the 6 marathon majors. And then I realized, wait a minute, I already have one because I run Chicago already in 2016. And I go, oh, so
Now I got 2.
I got 2, and so I only have 4. So I just got
Only
into
4.
Well, I mean 4 more majors. So I think I mentioned you. It got into me this idea, and then I learned about the continent right there as well.
Yeah.
So I said, you know what? Why don't come up with a goal? So I made a goal in 2017 of running the 6 majors, running the 7 continent, and running 10 Bostons in a row.
Wow.
So I just say that's the thing, because I learned that was a thing. Running 10 Boston in a row will get you in without any extra qualifying after
The
10.
mental strength that had to take.
Wow.
But it wasn't that I was saying, well, it was like, okay, this is a goal. Why not shoot for it? I didn't know how I was going to do it.
Sure.
But so then I
Wow.
found out really quick that there was a marathon, Berlin Marathon was coming up.
So that's number 3.
That was number 3. I said, why not? So I just joined. I signed up. I got in. And while I was in Berlin, the day after the race, I got a text saying there's a spot at the New York Marathon in November. Like,
Before you go to New York,
all right, sure.
Berlin. Why is that a pretty easy
It's flat. Yeah, it's definitely
because
flat.
there's 12 world records there.
Yeah, it's a flat
fast,
course. It's
fast
very
cour-
fast.
very
Yeah.
fast.
So that's why.
Yeah, Kipchoge.
Yeah.
He broke the course record there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
He's,
fast.
he's broken a lot of records.
He's working around. Yeah, we didn't do any of that.
He's the GOAT. For
But
sure.
he's definitely good. Yeah.
He was at Boston this year, by the way.
Was he?
Yeah.
And didn't have a great performance for the first time in a long time.
Really?
It wasn't his best. Yeah.
Just the best guy. He was at the Fan Fest, they call it, and was speaking.
Well,
He's
Sam
he's
said
just a
he's
gentleman.
making millions in endorsements.
The people too are wonderful. I ran one marathon, Dave, where I fell in with the 4:45 pace group and just ran the whole way with them. And there was a gentleman who lost his son in Iraq, carried a wooden American flag
The whole way.
and I was blown away. I was like, but the things you see in marathons, don't you, Tom? You see the people are wonderful, and you see so much spirit, don't you?
Yeah,
Absolutely. I could mention that this year was the 10th anniversary of the Boston bombing. I don't know if you.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. That was
what
really-
happened? What happened was that this year, the brother of the little boy that was killed,
Yeah.
and his dad, for the first time, both ran Boston.
Oh boy.
Wow.
And it was
wow.
like, and they had the guards there by the.
How emotional was
It
that?
was very for everyone.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
like-
there's a lot of that. Last year, I think it was 2022, a woman who was injured and lost part of her leg, she ran with Shalene Flanagan. I think it was last year.
I think it was. Yeah.
Because I ran by him. and Shalene Flanagan, who's won the New York Marathon, is a very famous marathoner, they were focused. And this woman, who she was, guiding,
guiding her.
was struggling, but they finished. And so there's a lot of stories like that. But I want to hear more about Sam's. So Berlin.
Now you're to New York, and that's number 4.
New York's number 4.
Number 4, a spot open. I said, why not? I took it. It wasn't my best race. I kind of struggled at the mile 10, but I got it finished. And then this was 2017. Then I learned that they might have been an opening in Tokyo, which is the next race, was in around the end of February 2018. And I got on that as well. I ran with a very close friend of mine from Arizona that we're family friends for years. So she was there with her family. I was there with my family. And it's kind of funny because what happened is, well, it wasn't funny for her, but she at halfway, she struggled and had some kind of a hip pain, and her daughter just cheered her on to get to half. And then they had to bring a wheelchair. And again, you go all the way to Tokyo and you don't finish.
Sure.
So the way we celebrated is at the end of the race at the hotel, we went to have a burger and a beer, and we only allow her to have half of the beer.
Half the burger, half the beer.
So Tokyo, would that be hilly too for you?
No, it wasn't hilly. Tokyo wasn't hilly.
Was not.
No, I can't tell you how flat, but Tokyo's fairly flat. and
then in London.
And then London. Then because I've made this commitment of running Boston every year, London happens to be sometimes only a week, sometimes 2 weeks after Boston.
Oh my gosh!
So you run
You
Boston.
could recover. You
Yeah,
recover
you
from.
recover
Oh my
that quick.
God! You recover.
Is hard. So that's 29. That's what happens is that's 2019 when I run the. So I did Tokyo, then went back to Boston in 2018. That's the horrible Boston 2018 with the weather and all that. But London's really hard to get in as far as the 6 because they give priority to the citizens of the UK and only allow so many people from outside. So it takes a while, but I got in. And so I did the Boston 2019. I told you I got sick and I had this cold in 2019, so I'm not feeling great. But then I go to London like 2 weeks later, and then I did well. So I was already recovered. So I finished then the marathons there. That was my last 6 of the 6. And then I had to continue. Australia was then in the fall for the 7th continent.
Wow.
Will you do it again?
Which one? You mean
do all 6 again?
No, there's a thing. There's people saying they've done 6 twice, and now they're trying to do it.
They're saying there are 96 people that's actually done it twice.
Yeah. So I have a friend, Ron, who just posted this week, Ron Romano, and he has shout out to Ron if he ever sees this podcast.
Yeah.
And he's a
Make
crazy
sure
he's a crazy runner.
You want him to subscribe and watch.
Yeah, yes. So he is going for the 3rd, and there's only 4 people who have done it 3 times. So he's trying to do all 6.
Wow.
They didn't even have that stat.
No. That's a new thing. But it's okay. I mean, for me again, my original goal was that, and there's about close to 1,000 people that have run all 7 continents. So I'm feeling that that's good enough for me.
You're done.
Yeah, and I can hopefully finish the last 3 Boston and then do races for fun. Not, they cost money. So you can't just be going around the world.
Right. Flying to Tokyo, London.
When you guys run, do you listen to music or not in a race?
I do now. There was a time I didn't, but I have, the technology has evolved, and so the headphones are much better now, and they're synced to your watches now. I mean, there's no cords or, things anymore. And so, yeah, I definitely do. And I love
Sam?
I do. Most of the time I do, except that some races I want to take in the vibe from the
atmosphere.
crowd.
Interesting.
So
Interesting.
I have it in some of the major one. I say, I it's weird because you train in music and you kind of need it. But getting the vibe from the crowds, especially Boston, that people make such a commitment to show up. They do in the other marathons. But it's such an experience to just be there that this year I was afraid of keeping the pace and all that. So I put 1. I don't know if I told you that. Instead of 2, I have in one ear low music so I can take the vibe from the crowd. But I still have this. I got something going that told me, oh no, this is the next song. So that was helpful.
Mentally.
Yeah.
Now, all the accomplishments, a 3:12 marathon, Tom.
Yeah.
All the Boston marathons. Sam completed the continent. All the Boston. What is the motivation that keeps you going? Because you're on top of the mountain when it comes to marathoning.
For me, I think I do it for health. I do it, I'm getting older, and I have a granddaughter now, and I have a son that is just starting high school this year. And it's just to stay, right now, it's just to stay fit and healthy. My motivation is, you have to choose a lifestyle that works for you, that is going to keep you healthy. For different people, it's a different thing. For me, I found it easy. To run, you need a pair of shoes. Anywhere in the world you are, you get in your sneakers and you go. You don't have to be fast. So you're moving. And I feel like moving is a thing that...
Guys, how many pairs of shoes do you guys go through a
let's
year?
not talk about that.
Tom,
we like our shoes.
Tom, what's your motivation?
Yeah, my
now?
motivation similar, health for sure. But I still want to keep going. I mean, like Sam, he has his goals. I've run 5 in a row. I'd like to do 10 as well. And you can't just, you got to keep going. And
When you say 10 Bostons.
10 Bostons, yeah. And I am way behind Sam in the 6 majors, but I have run Chicago,
coming.
Boston, and I was happy to get accepted in New York in the fall, so I'll be running
Yes.
New York on November 5th. I can't wait for that. And then we'll see what happens with London, Tokyo, and Berlin.
We need to get him back on the show leading up to that.
We're going to have
That's
to.
right.
Now, we always do a segment, rapid fire, come up. Before rapid fire,
Yeah.
one more question. I want each of you to look in that camera and talk to the people out there. Tell them, what did it mean to you to start your first marathon? And what are some of the words of advice that you would give?
For me, if you have a goal of running, and especially if you doubt that you could run a marathon, you have to commit. In my case, I run my first marathon in Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah.
Columbus, Ohio. And I didn't know anything about Boston. I just knew that when I finished the marathon, I didn't know what it felt like to finish the marathon. And then I figure out, I have 15 minute, what I thought was a 15-minute gap, or, to get into Boston, which it wasn't because they had switched that year. But anyways, it was a commitment that I'm doing this. And for myself, it took 5 years. But my family, like yours, was right behind me. And I remember the day I qualified for Boston, it was in Santa Rosa, California. My daughter texted me that morning from Canada. She was there. My daughter was in her belly. My granddaughter, Evie.
Wow.
And she was going to be born 3 months later. And
Wow.
she said to me that morning, Dad, she says papi, because that's how you call that in Spanish. Said, Papi, Evie and I, she is not born yet. Evie and I have a good feeling about this one.
Wow.
That's what she said.
That's beautiful, brother.
So when I finished, I started to cry.
I bet you did.
And I called
bet
her.
you did.
And I say, I did it for Evie. She's not
Yeah,
even
baby.
born. So
Yeah.
it was like,
Yes.
it was
Yes. Very
that.
cool.
And so they
Yes.
have been my motivation ever since. Like,
Yes.
they're there for you. My kids are the biggest supporter, and my granddaughter Evie, who is 6 now, and I give my son a hard time with this. She has traveled more than he has, and because she's been to 6 continents, and she's only 6 years old.
Yeah.
and my son is, I haven't done it. I start, well, it's up to her mom. She's the one finding this way, But anyhow,
That's
family.
it.
And
Family.
so don't give up on the goal.
Don't give up, yeah.
Don't give up. I say you run 1 minute and you walk a minute if you have to, but don't tell yourself you can't do it, because it is possible.
Tom, what's your message?
I would say that, first of all, running in general, anyone can do it. And whether you're slow or have goals of, actually, qualifying for Boston, I mean, anybody, if they put their mind to it, can do it. But just to run, I think, is a mental release. And I do think that it is, calming and soothing to be able to do that. Like Sam said, you put on your gym shoes. It doesn't take a whole lot, and you are able to do this. I just think that with regard to marathons in general, though, I mean, if you do complete one, I mean, Joe, you completed one. You know how how it feels.
I completed it, man. I wasn't like you, man.
It's an accomplishment, regardless
It
of
is.
the time.
That's right.
Regardless of the time, and you feel really good and proud about doing that.
Exactly.
And if you want to take it further, and if you have that instinct or that desire to, qualify for Boston, or do some destination marathons just because it's a great destination and you're surrounded by people. The other thing is, when you get into a running community, it does open up all kinds of friendships. And so, locally, as I mentioned when we first started, my colleagues, we just had a great bond and a lot of fun together. And that then has now expanded to me knowing, many people at Boston. I'm excited to get back to Boston because on Sunday morning we have this shakeout run, and there's 250, people from across all over the world, really, but mostly the United States, and we get to, see one another face to face and talk with one another. And
haven't seen them for a year.
Exactly. I mean, except on Facebook, we have a sort of a camaraderie on Facebook. But then when I was in Boston, 4 or 5 of us were running in the shakeout run, and we realized that we're going to New York. And so we're talking about making plans for when we're in New York. So it's a great community, whether that's local or whether it expands beyond the Fort Wayne area.
Before we get to rapid fire, I got one question. Is like Tim Clax, you guys have both mentioned him multiple times. Is he like the old goat of marathoners? Runners, let's say runners.
He's an amazing runner for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that I'm part of the team now because, when I started going to the Y with them, I couldn't keep up with them. And now, I'm part of their community. Some of the people that I started running with are no longer running for various reasons, retirement or health issues. But so having a community, people that are there with you, it's huge.
Yeah,
It's huge.
yeah. I for certainly looked up to. I mean, Tim was just a great athlete, and so back when I first started
I've
running,
known Tim
he just
since I was probably 11 years old.
When he was 11, you were 11.
I was 11.
Oh.
So him and my brother were on the state baseball team for North, state runner-up team.
Yeah.
Tim was shortstop. My brother was third base. So Tim's
Baseball.
I've always looked at Tim like another brother.
sure.
That's awesome. How about a little
Amazing
rapid
guy.
fire,
Yes,
Dave?
sir.
Tom, who would you like to meet, past or present?
That's a dual question.
For both of you guys, like, what's that one person that you'd love to have a conversation with? It can be past or present.
Yeah, it's got to be. I mean, it's got to be Eliud Kipchoge. I mean, I mean, he is the most gracious ambassador for the running community
Great
you could
answer.
ever want to know.
He took mine.
I mean, it's just. But he is the GOAT of our time, and
Yes.
maybe for many, many years, to come. Who knows?
Yeah.
But I will say again, just with local community stuff. Shalane Flanagan has come to Fort Wayne, to the Fort Wayne Running Club.
Yeah.
Des Linden, another Boston champion, has been to the Fort Wayne area. So the Fort Wayne Running Club is a great group of people, and every year there's a banquet, and there's always a famous runner that's there. Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
All right, to the both of you. What is your favorite restaurant in the 260?
Oh. You go first.
In the
lot of
260,
really
not the
good ones.
07 where my office is,
Yeah.
but the 260, which is very expensive.
Yeah, wait
It
a
can
minute.
be the 07.
Yeah,
Yeah, I gotta tell you, I mean, well, if I'm being honest, Cat Blue is my favorite restaurant.
Yeah.
All right.
So, okay.
Oh my goodness.
How about you, Sam?
I'm having a hard time. I like downtown casual. I like Mercado on
Yeah.
the landing,
Uh-huh.
and but I like, I don't know.
Followed up.
Yeah.
Followed up by your best Mexican in town.
Tequila. I mean, it's really
Yeah,
a great new restaurant.
I haven't been to Tequila yet, but I heard great things.
yeah.
So I can't give you one.
Sam doesn't go out to eat
I don't
much.
know.
Apparently.
I know Sam-
I will say, I mean, this is a
Sam's
great
always
topic.
running, obviously.
Club Soda is a great place to run it.
I love Club Soda.
I love Club Soda too. so.
What? Okay, you guys, here you go. Sam, you first. When you're running along in that marathon, baby, what song comes on that you always sing along to?
Oh.
Come on now. What's that song where you're like, yeah, and you're like running along and you always sing along to?
Well, I tell you that it has changed over time, but there's a couple songs. Even Hotel California has been a song.
Hotel California.
Yes, yeah.
Mine was Sweet Home Alabama.
Well,
I love that
Hotel
song,
California.
too.
But Hotel California has been because it's long.
Yeah.
And I kind of know where it's going, and then I know the beat, and then
Great
the beat
one.
gets me going.
That's a great song.
But there are many songs.
Great answer, man.
Yeah.
You weren't thinking that, were you,
I was
Dave?
stunned. I mean, I wouldn't ever think to sing Hotel
I know.
California.
On the radio.
Yeah.
There's so many.
There's so much. I have so many.
There's so
I got
many.
Spanish songs too. They're really good. So I can't tell you because you're gonna say, what is that?
How about you, Tom?
Yeah, again, as Sam was talking, there's just so many on my playlist. Thunderstruck is one, AC/DC.
yeah,
I mean, it
yeah.
just pumps
AC,
you up.
you gotta
I
love
mean,
that, Dave.
it just,
He's rolling down Boston,
I mean,
AC/DC,
Absolutely.
Thunder.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
There is so many. Imagine
Oh,
Dragons has
man.
great songs too that keep me. I mean, there's just a bunch of them. for
What
sure.
are you guys watching on Netflix?
I just finished watching 6 episodes of Unlimited with Hemsley, Thor. What's his name?
Yeah. I know
Chris
you
Hemsley.
Okay.
So because it talks about putting your body through streams in different parts, so they put him through a lot of streams.
Unlimited.
It's called Unlimited, 6 episodes on Netflix, or Disney Plus, or I think it's Netflix.
Yep. How about
It's
you,
one,
Tom?
One of the two.
God, you know, we have all the streaming services in the Hardin household, and it's not sports or running related, but Succession is what I'm watching right now
Awesome,
on HBO Max.
Awesome.
And Carrie and I, we watched Daisy and the Six. I think that's on Prime Video. That was a great one too.
Okay.
So anyway,
Last question.
yeah.
When you lay your head down at night, best sport moment in your life. What's that moment that when you lay your head down at night or you daydream, you're like, yeah, you think of that moment. What's it for you, Sam?
Wow.
Is it finishing the continents, man? What could it be?
I think so. I don't think about it every night, but I think that the finishing of the continent in Patagonia last year was one of those moments because the weather was so brutal.
Yeah.
And they said it was going to be. They said you might get a 60 mile per hour guys wind.
60 mile an hour.
And then
When was the worst thing to run in my opinion,
Yeah.
is the wind.
so when that happened, when I remember that I actually finished that, because it was blowing you, and at some point you have to stop, just try to hold yourself not to fall. And they say, yeah, Son of the Gods were 80 miles that day. So I don't know how and it was very slow. It was a slow marathon for me, but it's like having done it and getting to the end, that was rewarding, yeah.
Tom?
Yeah, there's no question. In my mind, it was when I finished the Louisiana Marathon
Wow.
and knew
Hold that up, man.
I was
Hold that-
I knew I
hold
was
that
a
up.
Boston qualifier. But here's the story. So
Wow.
Carrie, my wife, she had qualified for Boston and ran it in 2017, and I was with her, and I just felt the connection, the passion, all these great runners. The weather was outstanding. And I made the commitment that I said, I've got to be a part of this. I've got to do this. So that was in April of 2017. I'm training. I'm trying to get there. I run a marathon called the Erie Marathon in September of 2017. And that's like the cutoff for how Boston does their qualifying window. And I came up short, and it bummed me out. I came up short. But I redoubled my efforts, and I signed up for Louisiana, which is January of 2018. Flew out there by myself, just sort of nose to the grindstone, all business. It was just a perfect day. It was sunny, it was crisp and cool. Ran that thing, ran it fast enough that not only did I qualify, but I knew I had enough of a buffer that I was in.
I see you.
And I'll never forget,
Yeah,
woo!
that's awesome.
I called my wife, how was it? The day after, I think, it was MLK Day, and I made some joke about how it was the day, the day after I qualified for Boston. I can't remember the exact language, but I was just so happy, and to this day, I mean, that just turned the page. It was a new chapter, I guess, in my running journey.
You
So.
made it.
Yeah.
You made it.
Exactly.
And you know
And
what?
then thereafter, it's just clicked just damn near every time. So
Well, you know what? Thank you, guys. Two names that will always be spoken with pride when you talk about marathoners in the 260. Samuel Melo and Tom Hardin. Names you'll always remember as marathoners. And I tell you what, Dave, we just completed the journey of 26.2. Now we got Rob Dillon coming up from Health Kick. We got to put the fuel back in, baby. We just made the journey. Now we got to put the fuel back in with Rob. So, again, so proud of Tom and Samuel, and we are the 260.